Yo, how's it going everybody? You got Sketch here and welcome back to the channel. On this episode we're looking at one of my favorite horror games that house some truly nightmarish themes and visuals. Even years later, playing through this again, it remains one of the scarier entries in the series. Visually, this also displayed the progression of developers becoming more accustomed to the PS2 hardware and crafting some truly mind-bending experiences. We're checking out Silent Hill 3, developed by Team Silent and published by Konami, released to the PlayStation 2 in 2003. This would get a PC port later that year and eventually be re-released as part of the infamous Silent Hill HD collection for the Xbox 360 and PS3 in 2012. With the Silent Hill 2 remake being released, yet being a PS5 exclusive for at least another year, why not revisit the direct sequel to the first entry in the meantime? Before banging on too much though, let's check out the story. Heather Mason wakes up from a nightmare, eventually coming to inside the Central Square Mall's Happy Burger. She's approached by Detective Douglas Cartland, who claims to have information about her birth, along with a woman named Claudia, who says she will be instrumental in bringing paradise to Earth. With her head writhing in agony, Heather emerges on the other world in hopes of getting back home and escaping the nightmarish hellscape that is Silent Hill. Gameplay-wise, you've got a 3D survival horror game that connects to the events after the first Silent Hill. Many of the same mechanics from the last two games are here, like the bottomless inventory and a bunch of new weapons to vanquish the deities of the dark. You'll traverse the landscapes of Silent Hill collecting items to progress forward while slowly unraveling what's going on here, along with the supporting characters hinting at how special Heather is as a revolving plot point. Combat feels a bit better than Silent Hill 2, with strafing while in combat, along with the quick turn and recentering the camera. You'll find several ranged weapons this time around, like pistols, shotguns, a flamethrower, and submachine gun, all of which pack a punch from a distance. There's also several melee weapons like the katanas, a maul, and the copyright-free beam saber. A few of these are unlocked by completing the game using only melee weapons or firearms, and the unlimited SMG will shred everything on screen once you can achieve it. You've also got the Heather beam, which will fire orbs of energy from Heather's eyes, which is a spectacle in itself, despite it not doing a whole lot of damage. Exploration is the main objective as you solve puzzles and collect items to progress along the story. Locating maps of each area will help you navigate them more efficiently, and from the mall to the cathedral, several landmarks of past games are here with the exception of the Midwich School this time. The subway is a maze that is easy to get lost in looking for your platform, and if you choose the wrong path, you can be quickly met with a game over as you meet a train head-on if you're unlucky enough to fall on the tracks. Areas have several hidden hazards and events that will trigger if you aren't careful, and these can also result in a swift game over. Puzzles range from number codes that can be found in the area to rearranging books on a shelf to reveal a message. There are also several sections where environmental puzzles will come into play, like the bucket of chemicals by the fan to clear the path of bugs, and the event where an elevator ride becomes a life or death game show. There's also the Haunted House maze, which requires you to find the right path quickly or get smoked by the red mist. The range and difficulty with the puzzles this time around isn't as obscure as Silent Hill 1 or 2, but there will be a few that you'll scratch your head wondering what's missing, while others feel a little more obvious. Enemies are plentiful, and these are some nightmarish creations that come out of the woodwork early, like the tadpoles for example. The mall introduces several enemies, with each section bringing in a few more, and by the time you reach the Brookhaven Hospital, the nurses return, but they're now strapped, several of them having pistols and shotguns, making them quite devastating in groups. Newer enemies range from the huge Goliath blobs that lie in wait for you to approach alongside the Brookhaven experiments who have swords for arms, and these are the most lethal non-boss characters in the game. Bosses are terrifying amalgamations, starting with the Splitworm and leading up to the battle with the goddess herself. Boss characters are all over the shop, revolving around the theme of resurrection. While I don't want to spoil too much about the narrative, for those that haven't played this, bosses look gnarly here, and the subject matter behind them does equally get as intense at points. These encounters are also on the tougher end, since a lot of these characters can delete you in a matter of moments depending on weapons you have available and figuring out how each will attack. The battle against your clone sends it back into the encounter several times, each with a different range and melee weapon. Remember this part the very first time, getting absolutely smoked along with the final encounter. Some encounters can end on a single hit, however, like when you're exiting the sewers, but if you try to leave without dropping the hairdryer in the water, you'll meet a watery demise. Graphics wise, Silent Hill 3 is visually impressive, pushing the PlayStation 2's graphics rendering in real time. This was a noticeable shift compared with Silent Hill 2, which did transition between cinematic and gameplay scenes. What's sick here is that the cinematic and gameplay graphics are nearly seamless, creating some serious immersion. It's even crazy to think that this was developed with a smaller team than its predecessor, with an even shorter development window of 9 months. The atmosphere in this one is truly horrifying at points, in the real and nowhere worlds, and it leaves a lasting impression considering there's so much less separation from its cinema to its gameplay. Environments are all illuminated with your flashlight, and the level of detail starting from the mall only get more grotesque as you progress through the story. The first transition from reality to the other world looks gnarly, and this entry in particular had some of the most disturbing transitions, like the mirror scene, which continues to live in most players' memories rent-free. When the door locks behind you, preventing your escape, this legit causes anxiety as you play it. Moving on to the latter end of the game, seemingly common places become a thing of nightmare, like the amusement park's carousel, becoming rusty, belching blood and fire. The chapel section is one of the craziest parts of the game, from its hand-drawn map to how it bounces you around the arena at times. This part also contains a lot of material centered around birth and religion, with some heavy events leading to its climax. As if that weren't enough, scenes throughout the game's narrative ride the line of intensity from the opening segments until the game's end. Enemies continue to morph during the game's run, and by the closing chapters, everything looks like a fever dream as you inch towards that final battle. From the opening boss fight with the Split Worm, to the battles with Leonard and the god itself, these are all highly cinematic experiences that reverberate the Silent Hill feel, while upping the ante on how intense these encounters can feel and look. Depending on choices made and combat preference, you can achieve one of 3 endings, including a joke ending that's similar to the UFO dog from Silent Hill 2. A couple of the endings may throw you off at first, but these are intentional, from the weird to more gut punch style reveals, though each is worth seeing. After the first couple runs, and the extras that you get with each clear, the runs will get progressively faster, taking about 3 to 4 hours once you can confidently navigate through all the game's hazards. Sound-wise, Silent Hill 3 sees the return of composer Akira Yamaoka, and right off the rip, the tunes feel different yet familiar, with a surprisingly upbeat tune, accompanied by its visually gnarly opening sequence that gives you a preview of what to expect. Alongside the toe-tapping guitar tracks are some haunting industrial tracks as you traverse Silent Hill. The Twin Peaks style guitar work is here once again, along with the metallic stabs of the other world's background ambience. Sound effects are also nice and crunchy, with some startling audio that has subtleties and some well-timed jump scares like the ones from the amusement park maze. The Foley guy here has some nice attention to detail when you step across different types of terrain, like the damp paths in the sewers, to the metallic grounds of the carousel and chapel breezeways. The voice acting has mostly good delivery that feels like golden age horror cinema, coupled with more campy slasher style dialogue at times. You get characters and scenes that will genuinely mess with you as you try to figure out what the motivation of some characters are, while others have the same appeal of protagonists from the Evil Dead or even Friday the 13th films, with characters dropping one-liners and eerie foreshadowing. The references to Silent Hill 2 based on player actions are also pretty clever, along with some fourth wall breaks. Silent Hill 3 is a great game and one of my personal favorites in the franchise due to its impact and atmosphere as you play it. From the first to the most recent run, that story just has several shocking moments and visuals, and the tension that parts of this builds is an experience that survival horror fans should have. With it being a direct sequel to the original, some gaps are filled in, and its narrative does go to some dark places while weaving in a very good story. The ability to scale the puzzles and combat lets you tailor the experience for more cerebral exploration or more action-oriented playthroughs, along with its multiple endings. The catches with this and most of the Silent Hill entries that are on 6th generation consoles, these have gotten rather expensive, and this one in particular, being exclusive to the PS2 and later PC, has kept it on the moderate to higher end in the NTSC region. Loose copies can go for as much as $122 and $200 plus for complete copies. This also included a soundtrack, so that's not included with a complete version. Don't pay complete prices. If you're a fan of survival horror or the franchise in general, play this one however you can aside from that HD collection. Silent Hill 3 gets a 9 out of 10 and comes highly recommended to series fans and fans of survival horror games that push the envelope with body and cerebral horror. This is one of those games that continues to be a pinnacle of the series and a genuinely terrifying game with its set pieces and encounters. Rumor has it that if the Silent Hill 2 remake was successful, perhaps this entry might get the same treatment in the future, but for that to make sense, Konami would have to remake the first entry too. That'd be a great double pack of games, especially remakes, if they want to go for continuity's sake. This is arguably one of the best survival horror games on the PS2, but that price tag in its current market is admittedly steep. If you can find this for a deal, it's a great addition to any collection. If you just want a good scary game to play for the holidays, this is a solid choice. And I thank you so much if you made it this far into the video. If you find these videos helpful, that's awesome. I'm glad you can use it as a resource. Check back often, we'll have more reviews and commentaries come up in the near future. But until then, take it easy and stay safe out there. I'll see you on the next one.